Hello and welcome to Grapplingpodden. This is a podcast about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, grappling and submission wrestling in Sweden. Today's guest is Lucas Rodrigues, and this episode will be in English. Lucas is a multiple-time world champion, and we will talk about his beginnings in Jiu-Jitsu, training at Art of Jiu-Jitsu with the Mendes brothers, and how he moved to Sweden to run his own academy. If you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and also follow us on Instagram at Grapplingpodden. Enjoy. Lucas Rodrigues, welcome to the podcast. How
Tack
are
så
you?
mycket. Thank you. I'm doing good. How
Also
about you?
good, also good. I'm good. How does it feel to be compared to your world championships? How does it feel to be the first ever guest on this podcast?
Feels like a new experience. I hope the channel and the podcast can grow, and I'm very happy to be the first one.
Cool. Have you ever been on a podcast before?
Yes, I think one, no, two. One back in Brazil and one here a
All
couple of
right,
years
cool,
ago.
cool. So, please, for the listeners and for me, could you take us through like your beginnings in jiu-jitsu, where you started, how you got into it?
Mhm. Yes. So I started training when I was around 10, 11 years old. 10 years old because my father was an MMA fighter back in Brazil. And during the day, my mom had to go to work, and my dad was the whole day in the gym training and preparing for his competitions. So there was nobody to take care of me and my brother. And with time, just me and my brother got started feeling interested into training jiu-jitsu or any other martial art that my dad was doing at the time. So during the day, while we were spending time with my dad, we just started joining the classes. That's
Cool.
how we started.
So you mentioned you were training everything that your dad trained. So did you also go into MMA or so, or
Yeah,
just jiu-jitsu straight from the beginning?
everything. Because, like I said,
Mm,
my dad used to spend the whole day in the gym. So either he was doing boxing, he was doing wrestling, he was doing Muay Thai, he was doing Jiu-Jitsu. So uh, we did a little bit of everything. And the only reason we actually stuck with Jiu-Jitsu was because there is no competition for little kids in boxing, for example, or Muay Thai. Like I was 10 years old, my brother was 8, and we couldn't compete, right? And
mm,
after we spent a lot of time training, we wanted to actually compete. So that's why we stuck with jiu-jitsu because it was the only martial arts that we could actually compete at the time.
mm. So directly when you started, you wanted to immediately compete in martial arts. It
I
wasn't like
think
you started and then slowly, but you wanted to compete
yeah,
directly.
I think it took a little bit over half a year, that I did my first competition. I remember I was 11 when I did my first competition, and my brother was 9, I believe. So
Mm,
it took, let's say, half a year, and we did our first competition.
mm. So how were the competitions like when you first started competing? Did you have success immediately and you thought, yes, this is something I'm going to do? Or did it kind of come later and grow on you?
The first competition we both lost. Me and my brother lost to the same guy because back in Brazil, even though there was competition for kids, there wasn't so many kids competing like it is
Mm,
nowadays. So the brackets were all mixed up. I was 11, my brother was 9. We were put together in the same bracket, and we both fought the same guy that was 1 year older than me. Nowadays we're friends. This other guy, but it's the story is pretty funny because we were all different ages, and they just put everybody together in the same bracket, and we fought because we were similar weight. uh, but like I said, we both lost to this guy, and we only started winning, I think, on the second or third competition. I think I won my second, but my brother still had a couple like hiccups. So he didn't start winning straight away. But the thing with like know that we were gonna do it or want to do it was kind of like natural because my dad was doing,
mm.
my dad was a fighter. Everybody spoke to us as we are our father's son, right?
Yeah.
So my dad had a nickname. It's his nickname is Urutum, and back in my city, everybody knows him by his nickname Urutum, and everybody would talk to me and my brother as Urutum's kids.
Oh, all right.
So everybody would address to us as like the smaller version of Urutum, which would be Urutunzinho. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
Zinho is smaller in is small in Portuguese. So everybody would just call us like this: Urutunzinho one, Urutunzinho two, and so it just felt natural for us to keep doing it because it was where we spent our days. It was where we spent a lot of time with my dad's friends, with everybody that we hang out with was doing some type of martial arts. So it just felt natural, you know.
Yeah, so you just kind of flowed into it and it was just something you did. Cool. So you are competing in local tournaments in Brazil. Are you also competing, for example, in the Brazilian Nationals or World Championships in USA, or that came later?
Yeah, I think my first Brazilian nationals was at juvenile 16. So from 11 until 16, I was doing only minor tournaments around my city, and we kind of grew very like in a good path where my dad had everything kind of planned. You know, my dad always told us like first you're gonna win all your local tournaments here in the city, you kill everybody, and then we start traveling to another city, but still
Mm,
not doing big tournaments. It would be like another state, but not IBJF yet. And then we start winning this other city, this minor federation. We win there. Once we win there, that's when we're like everybody was talking about IBJF. In the beginning, we kind of didn't know what IBJF was, what the major event was, but we had a lot of friends that were talking about it.
yeah.
So then we started seeing, okay, this person is going to this other states to fight. Maybe we should try to go and do the same. So we started winning a lot of tournaments in the city. We went to another city and won tournaments there, and then we started traveling to Rio de Janeiro and São Paulo. And
Mm,
there it's when like our level started rising really fast because in my city the amount of competitions were pretty similar to how it is here in Sweden. There's not enough tournaments to keep you active throughout the whole year, you know. Like maybe you have 4 or 5 tournaments during the year. So for us to stay active, we started traveling every month to either Sao Paulo or Rio de Janeiro. And then we started fighting with kids that were fighting every weekend against each other.
mm.
So by the time that we felt like, okay, now we can compete, we can compare with these kids, now we go to IBJF. And that's when I fought Brazilian Nationals for the first time. I was 16, my brother was 14.
Mm. So, just one question: where did you train at? Which academy did you train at during this time
We started
when
at
you
a
started?
yeah, I started at a small academy called Arena,
Mm.
and they were not affiliated to no other like major team. But after I believe I got my blue belt, we changed to Checkmat Curitiba, and the reason was for us to get better training partners, and to train with people that were competing as well, people that were like traveling to fight these tournaments that we wanted to fight, and that was the main reason why we changed. And as soon as we changed to checkmat, that's when like we started learning how to compete, you know.
Yeah.
Before, between 11 and 15 years old, we knew how to fight, which is very good, but knowing how to fight is not enough to win competitions. You need to know how to compete, and that's when we started learning about strategy, about which techniques to use against each person and stuff like this.
So,
Hmm?
oh, keep going, keep going.
So that was a big change for us in order to make our jiu-jitsu get to like a high level, you know.
So as you got older, you and your brother, you didn't think about going back to MMA and pursuing a career within
No,
MMA.
no. For a little bit, I was thinking about doing a boxing match because throughout this whole time I was training boxing a little bit on the side, but every time, for example, at 15, 16 years old, where I could have gotten a fight, uh, I would start training, thinking about this event that is coming up, let's say 2, 3 months from now. But then because we're traveling every month to fight in Sao Paulo or in Rio, I would start training for that competition, and then a jiu-jitsu tournament will come.
Yeah.
And I'll say, okay, I can't train boxing. I have to focus on jiu-jitsu tournament because the tournament is coming before. And then
Yeah.
let's say I lose this tournament. I say, fuck, now I have to train more to the next one. So I just end up being like a snowball, and I never managed to like make time to do boxing. And I don't regret the decision. I think it was for the best.
Mm. So you mentioned that your father told you to like he was kind of guiding you where to compete, how to compete, and which tournaments to go to. So how do you feel him being a fighter? How do you feel that his guidance has helped you in your career?
No, definitely. Uh, I feel like if we didn't have him, our path would have been a lot harder
Mm.
because since he has gone through a lot during his own career, he was able to keep us and like steer us away from things that could have happened in a bad way that might have happened to him. And so he was very like careful and trying to keep us like in a safe path, you
Mm.
know. So I think his guidance and his advices are very important for how we end up um, succeeding in our careers.
Yeah, and same with your brother. I was thinking like, how much did it affect you having a brother who also trained, who also pursued uh, competing and winning tournaments? How much did this affect? Did you like train together a lot at home in the academy all the time? How did this influence your path in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, we definitely we always pushed each other a lot. Uh, at a point where it was very competitive as well, you know. So whenever
Mm,
we would train against each other, it was extremely competitive, especially when we started getting it to about the same size. Because even though I'm older than him, him now he's a lot taller and bigger than me.
yeah.
So for a period, I was bigger than him, so we didn't train that much. But between, let's say, blue and purple belt, we were kind of the same height, same weight, so we were training a lot with each other.
And then he wanted revenge.
Yeah, and then he started beating me up, and now he's much bigger than me, so now we don't even train when we see each other, because uh, the way he fights, it doesn't benefit the way I fight, because the guys in my division are not going to give the same reaction as he does, and I
Mm,
also can't emulate the same reaction the guys in his division will give him. So this is something that Professor Guy always does back at AOJ. Like he always splits the training by weight and size, by the way people fight, so everybody can get a proper training. You know, so but going back into our childhood, it was like if I would see my brother losing, it would make me really, really sad. And if he would win, it would make me so motivated. So definitely our relationship and our paths growing up and training together, it made everything easier as well.
mm, cool. So you start training at a more competition-oriented academy. You start traveling every weekend to Sao Paulo or to Rio. Um, you get to the Brazilian nationals. How does it go?
I lost semifinal. I lost the
Mm,
semifinal. My first Brazilian nationals. My brother won. I lost the semifinal, got third place, and my brother won the his division.
mm. So, uh, and then I remember I heard about you first time when you were I think a green belt or a blue belt.
Mm.
Um, my friend had been in Checkmat in California for the World's Camp, and he said, "Hey, yeah, this guy is really sick, and his brother they are good." So, when was the first time you competed outside of Brazil, for example,
It
in
was at Worlds 2015. I was blue
15?
belt juvenile two.
Uh, Blue belt juvenile. All right. So, how do you think? What was your first impression of coming to USA and competing there? Did you see the level same as in Brazil, better or less?
It's the level of competition itself. I felt like For the juveniles blue belt, it was kind of the same because I was fighting the same guys. The same guy I lost Brazilian national, I lost to him at Worlds.
Mm,
So the competition was the same. This is something that I always tell my students. Once you start going to big competitions, you're gonna fight the same person every single tournament. So this guy that I lost Brazilian national, I lost Worlds, I lost Floripa Open, and I lost. If I'm not wrong, I lost another time, probably South America. So I lost to the same guy 4 times in a span of 2 years. So we were fighting each other all the time. So uh, the level, especially in the blue belt, is kind of like Brazil is a little bit higher because you have a lot of tough kids. They're fighting each other all the time, but majority of them cannot afford to go to USA, cannot afford to travel outside the country. So the level end up being higher in Brazil compared to USA. But the higher you go up on the belts, once you get to the brown and black belt, then the words it's a lot
mm,
harder than Brazilian nationals or Europeans. But the lower the belt, the higher the level of the competitions in Brazil because
yeah.
like again the majority of people cannot travel outside.
Mm. So yeah, blue belt is a funny division because you can have someone who trained for 2 years,
Hmm.
or you can have someone who trained for like 12 years and he
Yeah,
started when he was 4.
yeah.
So I think the level can be really high, but it can also be like a discrepancy
The gap
between the
is
competitors.
insane.
Yeah, the gap is huge.
Hmm.
Um, so the thing you mentioned about the different belt divisions, you can often hear people say purple belt is the toughest division, or this one or that one. So you won worlds at purple belt.
Hmm.
How would you compare? Would you say that it is the toughest division, or how would you compare all the belts to each other, and how are they
Now, to be honest, I
different?
think they all have the same level of intensity. Because, like I said, you keep fighting the same people. The
Mm,
same guys that I used to fight when I was a teenager. They're still competing in the black belt.
yeah.
So we went through each belt fighting each other. So there's no harder or easier. I think what makes the belt harder is probably the difficulties and challenges that you face outside of the mat, as in now you start having to take care of your own finances. You have to travel and do things by yourself. You have to start thinking about how you're going to get new sponsors, like all of these extra challenges that I think that's what like weighs more into the path rather than just the competition itself.
Mm. So uh, yeah. So would you say when you competed in worlds first time, did you stick to training to USA, or did you go back and forth between Brazil and America, or
No, I kept going back. I think the first year that we went, I spent 3 weeks, 2 weeks max in USA. Went back, uh, started training again, started winning tournaments in Brazil again. Went back to USA only the next year.
Mm,
So yeah, it was 1 year in between first time and second time. But that after the first year that we went, I won South American in Brazil. Uh, if I'm not wrong, I lost the division to the same guy again, but I won the open class. So it was a very important tournament for me because again, after losing to the same guy at fourth time or a third time, I'm not fourth time, I managed to come back and win the open class. So it was something very important for me.
so the thing about fighting the same people all the time, how was it for you mentally? Did you lose your motivation, or did you get even more motivated losing to the same guy 3 or 4 times in a row, or did you just want to catch him?
I didn't think too much about that like that one guy, because it's not only him in the division, and it's not only like he's not the only tough guy in the division. So since we're always fighting tournaments where we have to fight 3, 4, 5 guys, At blue belt adult, we had to do 7 fights. I couldn't stick to like, shit. I have to be that one guy, you know.
Mm,
So of course, sometimes it's like after you lose, you say like, shit, I lost to the same guy again. So now
mm,
I have to do everything again. I have to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So at a lot of times it felt more as a motivation because I was like, okay, I'm doing something wrong. I have to find a way to fix it, rather than just feeling sad and unmotivated. I feel like that has never been a problem for me. I never felt like I have to, or I wanted to quit, or I didn't want to do that, or I didn't want to train. So that has never been a problem to me. Thank God.
cool. So uh, during this time when you're a juvenile, you're competing in America for the world championships. So what is your, if you think back, what was your plan? Like in your head, were you going to try to move to America or stay in Brazil? And what kind of goals did you have?
So the plan was always to move to USA and to make jiu-jitsu my career, my brother's career. But in the beginning, it was kind of tough to like imagine what path we would take because first time I went to USA, I was 17, and then it's kind of hard. Like, how am I gonna afford to do all of this? How am I going to be able to provide for myself if I do move? But things were just like happening. We started meeting a lot of people. We started talking with people that have done that moved to USA, just let go of everything in Brazil and just made things happen. And that's kind of how it happened. Like we just kept fighting, kept competing, kept meeting people, and things just happened.
Cool. So moving forward a little bit, how did this Sweden thing start? How did you come to Sweden and Europe from Brazil or from America? Why did you decide to come to Sweden of all places?
So again, it just kind of happened because my third time in USA, I was preparing for no gi awards in 2016. So 2015 I go first time, I lose, get third place. 2016 I go the second time for gi awards, but I lost again. The If I'm not wrong, the third fight or the semi, I think it was before even the podium. So I don't think I got a medal. I'm not sure, but I lost the second time. And then I go back to Brazil and I see the IBJF post the IBJF no gi words, and that would have been my first words no gi. So I decided I wanted to go again and try to fight words one more time that year, but this time no gi. So I traveled to USA, still as checkmat, and while I'm in the training camp, I meet Alan Finfo, and I already knew who Alan was. I've always watched him growing up, and we started to become friends because we were training together every day during like a month before the tournament. And after the competition, he asked me if I would like to come to Sweden and train with him for a while. So that's how I end up here.
So, what were you thinking when you asked you the question? What did you know about Sweden? What was your first
Nothing.
initial thoughts?
I knew
Nothing.
nothing about Sweden. Nothing about Sweden. I didn't know the language. I didn't know the currency. All I knew was Alan and that he was here. So
Mm.
I came here. He invited me and I came.
So you just said, "All right, go."
Yeah.
Cool.
He asked
So,
if I would want to come. I said yes. Just let me know the date.
so you came, and then you came to All Stars, right? Were you teaching there at this time or just training?
I was mostly training. Of course, I would teach sometimes if Alan would need to do something. Maybe he would travel, or he had to spend time with his family. Whenever he needed me to just cover, I would teach. But it wasn't the main thing I was here for. It was just I was here to train.
Mm. So, what was I gonna say? What was your first kind of impressions when you came? When you came for the first time?
It was dark.
Dark. You came in
It was
winter.
really dark. I came in the middle of winter. I landed, if I'm not mistaken, middle of January. So it was really, really dark. It was snowing a lot. So it was my first time seeing snow. For me, it was kind of weird to spend so much time at a place that was so dark, but I got used to it pretty quick because I spent the whole day in the gym anyway. So I
Yeah,
got to the gym. It was a little bit dark. I left the gym, it was dark, but since I'm inside the whole day, it doesn't even make a difference.
that's gotta be the worst thing about Sweden. Like not even the cold, but the darkness.
Yeah.
It gets a lot. Yeah.
Mhm.
So you're a purple belt at this time. You're still actively competing, trying to win big tournaments. Um, how did you train in all stars? For example, you're training in Brazil with your brother.
Mhm.
You probably have your training partners that you train with every day. How
Mhm.
did you manage your training and organize it? And coming to Sweden.
So that's when I started doing a lot more specific training.
Mm,
Uh, because since the level of the training partners is not as high as like what you are capable of, you kind of have to like handicap yourself a little bit. So I started doing a lot of specific training, maybe where I start in a bad position. So I tell my training partners, you have to try and do this while I'm trying to do this. So instead of doing a lot more full rounds of sparring like it was back in Brazil, I just started doing a lot more specific training, and that's how it has been since I was a purple belt until today.
mm. So how much did you train during this time? And did you have even training partners to train with, or did you have to pick and choose, or come to the ordinary classes?
I did the ordinary classes, which was 2 times a day, but I
Mm,
also did an hour and a half where I would just drill or again do specific training, plus the weightlifting, trying to keep doing conditioning training.
mm. So uh, you didn't compete that much regionally, like in Sweden, while you
No,
were training. No.
no. Here in Sweden, I think I've done a total of 3 competitions. Yeah, the first year I came, I did Nordic Open as purple belt. I won Nordic Open, and then that first time, the only times that I've competed was so Nordic Open. Then I traveled to Finland. I did Finnish Open, won Finnish Open, and I did Grand Slam in London. That was the third time I competed. That first time I came, Grand Slam I lost the finals. I think finals or semifinals. After that, I've only competed in Sweden again last year at Nordic Open again as black belt and Swedish nationals. So
Mm.
in Sweden, total of 3 competitions: two Nordics, SM, and I forgot. Sorry about a super fight that I did in Gothenburg.
Oh yeah, in BG Nation.
Yes.
I remember that one. So, but how would you compare the level of jiu-jitsu both in training and in competitions in Sweden particularly, but also Europe in general, compared to, let's say, America or Brazil?
I still think it's very far behind, especially Sweden itself. I think the level is very far behind from Brazil. Don't even compare, but to USA, for example, uh, I feel like USA managed to close the gap between USA and Brazil relatively fast,
Yeah.
and I think Sweden is still very far to even pick up on like the kind of the rest of Europe. You know, I think outside or around Europe, I think the level is pretty good. We have countries like Norway with Tommy and Aspen. The guys in London are doing a very good job, and the whole UK, Ireland also have some very good guys. So I think Sweden is still kind of far behind, compared to these
Mm.
other countries in Europe.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. Like USA, they managed to close the gap pretty quick to Brazil.
Mm.
I don't know, like BJ Penn, when did he win Worlds? 2000, mid 2000s or something.
Hmm.
And still 2024, we've yet to see, I think, uh, a European black belt world champion.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, so you are training, you're competing. Sweden is kind of your new home, you could say. But are
Hmm.
you also going back and forth between USA
Yes.
to train and to
Hmm.
compete, right?
Yeah. As soon as I came to Sweden for the first time, that's when my ties with Checkmat were finished. That's when I moved to AOJ.
Okay, so how did this go coming to AOJ? How did that contact happen?
So going back a little bit before Nogi Words, the same Nogi Words that I met Alan,
Mm,
my brother got invited to go to AOJ first because AOJ had started the Believe and Achieve program, and my
yeah.
brother was one of the selected athletes to go to AOJ. But kind of what was supposed to happen is that me and my brother was supposed to go together, but since they only contact my brother, then me and my brother was like, okay, my brother goes, I don't go because they didn't contact me, you know.
All right.
But then we still traveled together to USA. My brother went to OJ, I went to Checkmat, and I met Alan. I came to Sweden. My brother still in at AOJ, and then Guilherme just one day comes up to him and say, "Why did your brother never came here?" And my brother was like, "Well, you never invited him. You only invited me." And then after a while, I talking with my brother and also talking with Alan. I told Alan I kind of didn't want to go because Alan gave me an opportunity to come here. He brought me to Sweden, and I felt like if I would just go, I would kind of turn my back to him, you know.
Mm,
But I think that he told me, and it always sticks with me, and I always try to live up to that as well. Is that he told me, whoever really likes you, whoever has love for you, is not gonna care or is not gonna turn their back to you, depending on where you are. You know, because this is something very present in jiu-jitsu still. If you're not part of my team anymore, I'm not gonna talk to you.
yeah.
And that was kind of my fear with Alan. You know, I didn't want to lose this friendship that I had built with him. And he told me, like, I like you as a friend, you're my friend, I'm not gonna change with you because you're here or because you're there. And he told me, what they can offer you, unfortunately I can't. So there's no reason for me to try and keep you here. You're my friend, I'm always going to support you, I'm always going to cheer for you. Either you're here, either you're there, it's not gonna matter. I'm always gonna have the same love for you. So he told me, if I was you at your age, at the stage that you are in your life, I wouldn't even ask. I would have been there already.
Mm.
So that's how I left Sweden for the first time and went to USA.
Yeah, I guess if you want the best for someone, you like want them to achieve their goals, and part of achieving their goals, it would be to train with the best and at the best academy. So especially an academy like AOJ, it would be a hard offer to turn down.
Yeah.
So you get to AOJ, your brother is already there. You mentioned that he was part of the art Believe and Achieve program. So
Mhm.
what was the essence of this program? Did they like pick out a bunch of blue purple belts to train full time, or how was it set up?
Yeah, it's exactly like this. The initial program was all these younger guys would send in their application, their curriculum with everything they've won and stuff like this. And Guilherme and Rafa would pick and choose which one of those would fit in the program. So they end up choosing about 10, 11 guys, and all of these guys will live together in an apartment, and we will have support from a Motloda brand.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
so they would bring us food every, I think, every 2 weeks. It was a bunch of frozen food. We would just keep it in the fridge and heat it up whenever we had to eat. Uh, Plus, of course, training. We never had to pay membership to train there. And in return, we, of course, we competed. We used their brand. We spread their brand for at any tournament that we competed. But we were also working at the academy. So all of us started teaching kids classes, teaching private classes, and that was a way not only to kind of pay back, because again you're teaching classes for them, but also a way for all of us to improve our English, to know how to learn how to work with jiu-jitsu, to learn how to work with people. And I feel like this is probably the biggest skill that all of us learn throughout
Mm.
that time.
So a lot of life skills and not just jiu-jitsu techniques
Yeah,
and training.
yeah, 100%.
So, uh, which were some of the guys that got selected with you and your brother? So it was like Tynan, Cole, or
Now Cole came much later. Cole
oh,
just came.
later. Yeah, yeah. He's
Yeah,
younger, right?
yeah. But Tynan also was not selected because Tynan traveled there before Believe and Achieve. David, his dad, traveled with Tynan to AOJ, if I'm not wrong, a year and a half, maybe 2 years before Believe and Achieve.
Mm.
So Tynan was kind of the first one to go there by themselves. But because Guilherme was starting the program, Tynan was putting the program.
Mm.
But he was already there. He was the original.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but the guys that got chosen, the first ones was Caio Antonini and Jonathan Alves. They were the
Mm.
first ones. John is still there. Caio Antonini, Jonathan Alves. After them two was Jonathan Marquez and Lucas, forgot his last name, but Lucas, another guy from Manaus. So them
All
four.
right.
The fifth was my brother, and the sixth was Daniel Jr.
Yeah.
Those are the group. Those were the groups of Brazilians. So six Brazilians, and then one kid from Canada, Liam Moss, and one American, Jacob Kasama. So now we have six, seven, eight guys
Mm.
plus Tina, nine. I was the 10th.
All right.
So I was kind of the last one together.
So you mentioned that while in Sweden you had to adjust your training to do specific positions or techniques, and then you come to AOJ, and all of a sudden you have full time training. You have training partners your age, your belt, your weight. Um, so how did this change your game and your training in general?
I think it changed completely because first I've learned so much, like small details that made my technique so much better. And I think from that point on, I started doing a lot more berimbolo, a lot. I've learned how to be a lot more conscious on bottom, and I think it completely changed the way I was competing.
Yeah.
Uh, but the I think first 2 years, I was only getting my ass beat. The level and the structure of the training was it's something that if you're not there, you're not used to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's something that you can only understand if you're there. Like
Yeah.
people, when I try to talk about how much we've trained, how hard the training is, it's very difficult for normal people to like actually grasp it.
Mm.
Because it is like a full-time job. We're training almost the whole day, and the intensity of the training is so high.
I've heard you talk about it before, but please, for the people who don't know, how many hours a day did you train, and what type of training was involved in
So
each class?
only in the morning we would do 3.5 hours, just pure jiu-jitsu. So first class of the day, the last time I was there, it was 6 in the morning till 7. 7 to 8 was comp class. So 6 in the morning was fundamentals class. We would drill, do specific training, spar, but nothing crazy. 7 in the morning, that's the hardest training of the day, competition training. That's when all the competitors train with each other and the intensity of the training is extremely high. 8 to 8:30, sorry, 8 to 9:30, 9. Fundamentals again, run by Professor Guilherme as well, uh, where we do a lot of study of what happened during the comp class. So everything that had to be fixed, we would do in that third hour.
So Guy is following the sparring in the competition class, and then he's correcting your mistakes.
Yes.
So you're working techniques and like different for everyone, or
No, no, no. It's a general thing. Guilherme is
okay,
a lot. The way he holds the classes, he sees a lot of like patterns and general
okay.
mistakes. Because since everybody trains together, of course, everybody has different games, but throughout a period of time, you can see the group is kind of doing the same, you know, either mistakes or sometimes good things. Like the group always like follow a pattern, you know. So if the group would do this specific mistake, or if he would see a person doing a mistake, but if we fix this one mistake, it will benefit the whole group. That's how the training was built, you know. And so after this third and a half hour, 4 hours, we would go home, eat a little bit, rest, and go to the gym, lift weights. So we would lift. I would lift around 11 to 12:30. Go home again, eat, and then go back to the academy to do specific training at 2 p.m. So from 2 to 3, some guys would just drill, some guys would do specific training, and after the 3 p.m. we would rest a little bit, and then the guys that had classes would teach. So either teaching kids class from 3 to 4 or 4 to 5, or the adults class again at 5 to 6. And
Mhm.
all of these evening classes or afternoon classes, they were spread between us, the younger guys.
Yeah. So in one day, you've done more training than some people do in a week.
Yeah, so pretty much.
So yeah, I guess many people don't realize how much it takes.
Yeah.
But would you say the thing that makes AOJ special? Would it be the structure of the training? Would it be the training partners, or something else, or just a combination of many factors? Having trained at different academies, what would you say separates AOJ from the rest? Because I think they're probably the single best academy, or at least one of the best academies in the world.
Yeah. I think everything starts with the structure and the leadership, of course. I think the way Guilherme runs everything and how he managed to make everything fit a pattern and follow the path. I don't think nobody else does like he does. Uh, but then because he's able to do things this way, he makes people adapt to the plan, and that makes for the training room and the training partners be excellent. But of course, it is important that uh, the right people is there. You know,
Mhm.
this is something that I remember him talking about a lot. Like a lot of the guys that had come to the academy before, they were good, but they were not. They never really felt like part of the team, you know. And even though the training room and the amount of people, like the level can be good, but if they're not, how can I say it? If they are not willing or capable of like following that structure and that plan, after a couple of years, these people just end up going to different places. And
Yeah,
so the sense of like being part of the team is important, you know. And
yeah,
that makes for I think LJ not be comparable with no other place in the world, because not only the leader is great, everybody else around is like understand the goal and is going in the same direction.
yeah. So it's like Guy is the general, and everybody are just following.
Yeah.
Um, but at this time, you're competing in the gi and no gi simultaneously, right? You're
Mhm.
doing both. How was the training structured? Was it split up during the day? Some classes were gi, some classes were no gi, or did you do seasons of like a period with just gi and a period with just no gi?
Not it was gi. 6 months of the year it was only gi. 6 months later it would be 90%, nah, 80% gi, 20% no gi. Because
Okay,
at that time, no gi was only no gi.
yeah,
I think no gi became grappling 3 years ago, 2 years ago.
yeah,
So
with Gordon Ryan and those guys.
uh, I
So
think
basic,
nowadays no gi is not jujitsu without the gi. I think it's a complete different sport. So if you want to be excellent at grappling, you have to train mostly grappling. Like the two
mm,
things. Of course, there are guys that can still do two at the same time. But if you really want to like become the best, you have to put focus in either or. And at that time, I don't think there was that need. You know, the same
mm,
jiu-jitsu that we were fighting with the gi was we were able to replicate in no gi.
yeah. So basically, you just trained in the gi, and then before no gi world, you took it off
Yeah,
and
exactly like
competed.
that. Mhm.
Oh, okay. So it's interesting you said like in the last 3 years it has become a different sport, and it's always a debate: what's better, gi or no gi? Um, what's the future, gi or no gi? You know, where do you situate yourself in this debate? What do you think of like the future of jiu-jitsu? Will it be will the gi become obsolete?
I don't think so, because, like it or not, gi is still the biggest market in terms of how you can actually make money with the sport. You know,
Mm,
because you have gi brands selling gis, you have uh, the instructionals, you have mostly of the kids classes. Like a parent wouldn't put a kid to train straight no gi. They would
yeah,
probably search the gi jiu-jitsu because of the discipline aspect, the martial art, like aspect of the sport. So talking about just as a way of work with the sport, I think gi jiu-jitsu is still has a big part in the world. But if
mm,
you're thinking only about the competition aspect, how you're gonna make money competing, making jiu-jitsu excited, then of course no gi grappling is more appealing, maybe for the public that doesn't know as much, because the guys are doing more flashy things, they're more active during the fight. So if someone doesn't know jiu-jitsu, they're probably gonna be more inclined into no gi grappling. But I don't think gi is dead. I think there are many good fights in the gi still to be made. There are many exciting fighters to watch in gi. So I don't think it's that extreme to the point where people say in a couple of years it's gonna be dead. I don't believe in that.
yeah. I think I agree with you actually, because if you look at the worlds or at the Europeans, they're growing every year. There's thousands of competitors every year, and even though no gi or submission wrestling, maybe there's more money professionally, but for normal people training, I still think gi is the number one.
Yeah,
So yeah, if you want to make money opening an academy, I think gi is the way to go.
yeah.
Um, So you mentioned a lot of good fights to be made in the gi, a lot of good guys. What are some of your favorite jiu-jitsu fighters to study currently or in the past, which have
I
influenced your game?
I always enjoy watching old fights, like really old fights. Like
Like 90s or
yeah,
2000s?
around 2000 mostly, because 90s, like I wasn't even doing jiu-jitsu yet, so it's maybe
Yeah,
too old for me.
yeah,
But 2000 to 2010s, I really enjoy watching those fights, and I always try to not only pay attention to the technique itself, but I always try to imagine what the person is like thinking or feeling during that moment. And I feel like understanding that side of the mental part of the fight, it's easier for me to understand the technique, you
yeah,
know, because sometimes fighters can do something that for you doesn't really make sense, but if you stop to think about what are they feeling, what are they thinking in that situation, that is easier for you to understand the technique itself being used.
yeah.
So I enjoy doing that. And my all-time favorite fighter to watch was the late Leandro Lo.
Oh yeah, mine too. Rest in peace, man. It's
He was
crazy to think that he is gone, but his jiu-jitsu was crazy.
yeah.
Also, like winning worlds at four weights or what it was.
So he's always been my number one favorite, and because of him, I know who Alan is, because I remember I
Ah,
believe
they
fights
fought. Yeah,
that they did against each other, and the fight was crazy. You know the amount of stuff that they did during the fight. So because of that one fight, like Leandro versus Alan, I knew how Alan was, so I started watching Alan a lot more, and then I end up here. So
mm,
Leandro was one of my favorites. I really enjoy watching Michael Langi. I
yeah,
enjoy watching Rodolfo Vieira. I enjoy watching who else? Of course, Guy and Rafa, Bruno Malfacini. All these like real legends. Those are the guys that I like to watch the most.
yeah. So the thing you mentioned about you like to study jiu-jitsu and kind of figure out what the guy is thinking. I
Mhm.
saw a while back you had like a, I don't know, was it a seminar or something about tactics
Mhm.
and game plans. So how big part of a fight and how important is the tactical part and the mental part?
I
Um,
think
how much does it influence?
so much because again, like I mentioned on the seminar and on the video that I posted about it, having the right tactic allows you to win a fight with the least amount of effort. So this is something that I tell my students so much every single day. If they're able to stay uh, smart and calm and composed during the fight, and they're able to follow the tactics, the strategy, they can win any fight against pretty much anyone.
Mm,
Of course, there are times where the strategy might not work, and then you just have to switch the strategy. You have to adapt in the moment, and that's why we're training every day. But especially in the lower levels where people are not really thinking during the fight, having the right strategy takes you so far ahead. So I think this is something that the people that is growing up into the sport, that is starting to compete a lot more, they should spend a lot more time doing that.
mm. So you would say that like having the right strategy or the right game plan, even though you are fighting or someone is fighting someone who is a lot better,
Mhm.
they can win the fight by implementing the right game plan and sticking to it. But
100%.
is this do you is this something you train for specifically, like sparring wise? Do you train tactically, or do you just talk about what to do? And
No, we definitely train that. For example, this I think last week, me and my students we were doing a specific training, and the setup was like this. One guy. start the round winning the fight already. So let's say the guy is winning by one advantage,
All
right?
right.
The other guy is losing, and in order for him to win, he needs to score either one advantage or 2 points,
Mm.
and they're standing. So in this
Oh.
situation, let's say it's the last minute of the fight, the guy is winning by advantage, and they went out of bounds, and now they reset it standing. So now the guy that is losing the fight has 1 minute to either score one advantage or 2 points.
Mm.
How is the guy that is winning the fight gonna adapt or behave in this situation? You know,
Yeah.
with a guy that is losing the fight and he has 1 minute to make something happen.
Yeah.
So this is a big part of like tactic and strategy. This guy has to be able to choose the right technique or choose the right approach to make sure that this guy is not gonna score.
Yeah. And also maybe he has to pretend to be active so he doesn't get penalized or something.
Exactly.
But yeah, about your academy, when did you start your academy, and how did this decision? How did you come to this decision to stay in Sweden permanent?
So the reason why I stayed in Sweden is because of my academy,
Mm.
but why I decided to open the academy, how did it came up was the last time that I was in USA at the AOJ. The last words I competed as brown belt, that I got third, and I got promoted to black belt. Before getting promoted to black belt, I had a talk with Guilherme, and he told me that I had to start thinking about what I was gonna do after I stopped fighting. He told me if my plan is not to stay full time at AOJ, coming back home, I had to figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So as soon as he said that, I started thinking about like I have to start thinking about opening my own place, and from that moment, I already started thinking about a name, and the name wasn't supposed to be Aura; it was supposed to be Halo. It was supposed
Okay.
to be Halo Jiu Jitsu. And the reason was because I have a good friend back at the OJ, and he used to call me Angel because out of all the guys that we were hanging out with, I was the only one that wasn't doing like stupid shit. So I was the calmest one. So he always used to call me Angel, and
The
because
voice of reason in the group, right?
yeah, and of course I'm the oldest one. I'm the oldest of the group, so
Ah,
I was always the guy that was like, okay, guys, don't do that. So the name was supposed to be Halo, and coming back, I was thinking a lot about Halo, 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 and then someone in one of my classes back at All Stars, I believe it was a girl. She came up to me and said, "Lucas, your class is so aura. The aura of your class is so nice."
ah,
And then I was like, "This name is nice. Aura is nice." And then it became aura.
cool.
And so after I came back to Sweden after leaving AOJ, uh, I believe I still spent another year at All Stars, but already thinking about how I was gonna do, planning things, and figuring things out, like how was things supposed to happen.
Yeah. So before Guy Mendes had this talk with you about you need to start thinking, were you already thinking about continuing to compete like professionally, or were you thinking about not doing it anymore that much? What was your plan before he talked to you when you got your black belt?
I'm not sure. I think I still wanted to compete a lot, but I knew that was gonna be my last chance to win worlds as brown belt. I had already lost the first year as brown belt. I got third the first year, and then COVID happened, and that was gonna be my third year as a brown belt and my last chance to try and win as a brown belt. And the reason why I knew is because Guilherme is very transparent with his plans of like okay, you're gonna win this, we're gonna promote you this time, and you're gonna do this. So the promotion at AOJ with the competitors is always very transparent.
So there's no surprise when you get your belt, or
I
no?
mean, yes, but no, you know.
Yeah,
Like, you know, it's gonna happen if you do good at tournaments, but after a certain period, regardless if you win or not, you know it's gonna happen.
yeah.
So coming up to this tournament, I knew it was gonna be my last chance. And after I lost, I think it was kind of the only moment where I felt discouraged. Not in a way like I can't do it anymore, but in a way where I failed one of my biggest goals, which was to win words in every belt. You know,
Mm,
growing up, that was like my. I think winning words at every belt would mean more than winning words in the black belt alone. You know, because it was something that I was thinking about since I was a kid.
yeah.
So I managed to win words in blue belt and no gi words. Purple belt I won gi and no gi, but at brown I failed. You know. So after losing the second time, it was the moment where shit I failed one of my biggest goals. So
Mm,
now either I keep going just to win in the black belt one day, hope to win in the black belt one day, or now it's time to open my academy.
mm.
You know, so
So yeah,
that's how the decision came.
cool. So how long ago was it when you opened up Aura?
1 year ago,
1 year
January
ago.
2023.
So teaching wise, how much do you feel that your teaching style has been influenced by training at AOJ with Guy Mendes? You, ha-
100%.
so how much did you learn from him not only as a competitor but also as a teacher?
I think everything I do, how I am with my students, the vision I have for my school is is a mirror of AOJ. You know,
Mm,
being having the opportunity to be there for so many years is like I was inside the you know the how do I say this the magic chocolate factory.
yeah,
You
Willy
know,
Wonka.
yeah, I'm inside there. I'm spending time with Willy Wonka, and now I'm able to like build my own.
Make your
And
own chocolate.
yeah, I saw the blueprint. Now I'm only trying to replicate. You know, and of course I try to change a little bit things here and there to fit my own personality. But the core, it's there. You know,
Yeah,
I'm Guilherme's black belt. I understood a lot about the way he thinks, and the older I get, the more experienced I get with my own students. It makes me remember things that Guilherme used to say because now I'm on his shoes. So now I'm starting to understand things that he understands.
yeah.
But
So
100%, I try to replicate, I try to mirror it as much as I can.
yeah. So you said you started 1 year ago. The students you have, were they with you fresh? They didn't know anything, or did you have other people coming in already training jiu-jitsu for a little while? How does the lineup look?
In the beginning, majority of the students were training at other places, you know,
Mm,
because the way I started out, it's been very like we don't have beginners classes yet. You know, I only have a class a day so far, but the lineup started as people that already knew me and people that heard about me opening the academy. They came to me.
yeah,
Those guys started talking about jiu-jitsu with friends, and their friends started training with me.
cool.
And so the beginners, the fresh students that I have, it's always been people that knew guys that was already training with me, so they came and they stayed. So now I believe I have 70% is has trained jiu-jitsu before and knew about me and came to me later, and 30% is fresh new white belts.
Yeah. So I'd say like 1 year. It's a lot of time, but it's not a lot of time to develop like something crazy. Like, what kind of challenges have you faced with in regards to teaching? For
Mhm.
example, if someone comes in and you want to change their game, you think that
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge, 100%. I believe that working with people that don't know jiu-jitsu at all, it's 10 times easier than working with people that already knows jiu-jitsu.
yeah,
Because
or someone who thinks they know jiu-jitsu.
yeah,
Because that's worse.
that's
Because it's someone who doesn't know but knows that they doesn't know, then you can teach. But someone who
yeah.
thinks they know, it's
So I tell my students all the time. I say like, whenever someone new comes, it's like I have to make them kind of forget jujitsu to learn again. You know,
mm,
so that's 100% the biggest challenges, the biggest challenge I've had, and I think the process, even though it's a lot harder, it also feels fulfilling at the same time.
yeah,
I have a student, for example. Uh, when this student came to train with me, I believe they've been training for like 2 years, 3 years, and after all that time, you expect this person to like know like the basic, at least the core of jujitsu. But the
yeah.
reaction that this person the reactions that this person used to do was like something I didn't understand at all. But after this 1 year training, every day, like this is one of my most consistent students. This person has managed to like completely change their game, and this makes me very very proud and happy. And at the same time, it shows uh, how what I'm doing works,
Yeah,
because again, it's much easier to teach someone that has never trained before, but to be able to reshape someone's game is also something that is very difficult to do, and it shows the blueprint, the recipe is working.
yeah. It's you get a nice fulfillment from teaching. I've also been teaching kids classes from like for like 5 6 years now. So
Mhm.
when you when you see them roll like 6 years later, you're like, whoa, like they have become really good.
Yeah,
And it's it's satisfying to see,
yeah.
almost like winning a big medal, but almost.
Now
But
I
it's
think
like
is more. I feel
it's
like
yeah, it's in a different way. Yeah,
because winning a tournament is something that is it's so fast, you
yeah,
know. Of course, the preparation, the time before the tournament, it takes time. You spend so much, you put in so much effort to win a tournament, but once you win, you go to sleep. Tomorrow, nobody remembers anymore.
mm,
The feeling you have is like now you have to do everything again the next year. So it
yeah,
just the high is extremely high, the low is extremely low, and it just goes like this.
yeah,
But teaching someone, like you see that their development every day,
mm,
and for me personally, teaching is so much more fulfilling, and it makes me happy, brings me more happiness than me competing
yeah.
myself.
I've been to two of your seminars. They've been great. So if any gym owner is listening, like bring Lucas in for a seminar. You won't be disappointed.
Yes.
But what would you say? Let's say someone comes into your academy. He's a fresh white belt.
Mhm.
He says to you, "I want to compete. I want to win."
Mhm.
What? How do you train with him? Do you teach him Do you go straight into like berimbolo and stuff, or how do you shape someone's game from zero?
Mhm.
And how do you
So,
shape it to what you want?
so like I said, right now we don't have beginners class.
Mm,
So the guys that come in fresh, they are kind of thrown in at whatever we are working on. But I don't teach nothing that is crazy advanced. So, for example,
mm,
this whole year and a half that we've existed, 1 year, I've never taught a berimbolo at the class.
all
I
right.
never said, okay, this week we're gonna work berimbolo, regardless if all of my students have been training for, let's say, 10 years. I've never taught berimbolo in class. What I teach in class is like the fundamentals, like what
Mm,
they need to know. How to position their body at a certain position, what to think about when something happens. So, regardless if the person has been training for many years or they're fresh, they are able to understand what is being taught in class. And just with the time, they're gonna start picking up. So I have these two guys that I can use as examples. They came in fresh, they have never trained jiu-jitsu before, and they've trained with me for, let's say, half a year to 7 months before they went to Europeans as white belts. one
okay.
of them one of them was European champion, the other one lost in the finals. And
Wow. So wait, 6, 7 months? Did you say?
yes,
Okay. So silver and gold.
yes. So
Great
it was
result.
very, very good results. And with them was exactly like this. I've never taught them basics. I never taught them, today you're only going to do hip escape.
Okay.
You're only going to do Kimura. I've taught them the fundamentals. I've taught them how to think about when certain things happens. And I've also spoke a lot about strategy with them. And going up to the tournament, that was the main thing for them, being able to use strategy in order to win, regardless if the guy has been a white belt for 2 years, which was the case with the guys that they competed against. uh, so I don't feel the need of like, or I do want to have beginners classes when we find our own place, and I can have classes the whole day. I think is very important. But during the phase that we are now, I am able to make everybody kind of pick up to the same level without having these beginner classes.
Mm. So you could say that you teach more in some kind of general principles than specific techniques. Okay, today we're doing a scissor sweep.
Yeah. Of course, we
Cool.
still do techniques. We're working on like techniques itself, but the understanding of the situation is a lot more important than the techniques itself.
Yeah.
Nowadays we have too much information, so anything my students want to learn, they can just go into Google and find. Google,
Yeah.
YouTube, they can find anything for free. So the teaching technique itself is very outdated.
Right. That's also something I have through trial and error teaching kids classes. Like teaching them a sweep, you have to hold here, you have to hold here, and then position your body like this. They forget it,
Mm,
or they don't understand it. So now I'm just trying to like make them understand that, for example, you have to sweep to the same side that you're holding their arm.
mm,
And then when I see that they understand it, they can apply this same thing to many different techniques.
yeah.
So yeah. All right, but competing this no last year 2003 you competed in SM Swedish nationals.
Yes.
How did you come to this decision to compete in SM since you didn't do it before and since it was a long time you competed in Sweden
Hmm.
before that one?
The main reason was just as a way of marketing outer.
Oh, okay.
The whole, from the moment I decided, I was sure about the name. From the moment I said, okay, I'm gonna open my academy, I started posting just outer, just the name outer, not even jiu-jitsu, just outer.
Mm.
And when I went to Europeans no gi, I was still competing for for AOJ, but I already had the print auto jiu-jitsu on my rash guard. So that was the first time people saw auto jiu-jitsu. So
Yeah.
everything I did from that moment on was just marketing ploy, basically, you know.
All right.
So after that tournament, I was from the day I decided to open Aura, I was sure I wasn't compete anymore. But since competition is a big part of jiu-jitsu, I knew I couldn't rely on only my students to spread the name out, because we're like you said, 1 year is too little time to make something big happen, and less than a year is basically impossible. So I didn't want to put that pressure on my students. I never told them like, you guys have to win this tournament because people
Mm,
need to know who we are, right? So I never wanted to put them in that position, especially because I knew it would put too much pressure on them, and second is something that it would be delusional of my part, you know. Uh, so every tournament that I done from that moment on was just a way of showing out, you know.
all right.
So that's why I did Nordic Open and SM. Nordic Open, I think there was only two guys in my division, and I did two fights. And I didn't even want to finish the fight fast. I wanted to fight as much as possible to make as many videos as possible. You know, just to try and get as much material out of that tournament as possible.
Mm, yeah. So you competed to show out, and you showed it in a good way. You won gold.
Mhm.
Um, so there's this thing of mixing purple belts, browns, and blacks in the Swedish nationals. I know you had some opinions on it. Would you mind sharing your take on it? How how it was, your general experience?
So that's where like a lot of uh, opinion and people's feelings got mixed,
Hmm.
because what I've said is I don't agree with the mixing of the belts, not because the purple belts or the brown belts in Sweden don't have level to beat the black belts, because in the end of the day they're fighting each other, and we see examples of purple, blue belts, much younger, beating experienced and older guys outside of Sweden, right? We have
Yeah,
guys like Cole Abate, Mika Galvão, that as teenagers they were beating guys that have been competing for so long.
yeah.
So the 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 talk of like purple belts not having enough level to beating black belt, that has never been the case. I thought I made myself very clear with that, but I think people didn't really catch that. Uh, I think it's wrong to put purple and brown and black belts together, because it removes the prestige of calling yourself champion in your own belt. You know,
Mm,
I don't think it's fair with let's say a black belt that has been training for many years, but he doesn't want to, or he can't train as much as he used to. He has family, he works, but he wants to be able to compete at Brazilian, or sorry, at Swedish nationals. These guys should be able to compete at the same level as he is. You know, we guys the same age, the same level, the same amount of training as him, and the same for purple, the same for brown, and blue belts. I think being a blue belt and not being able to compete as Swedish national is something that it doesn't make any sense in my head. Uh,
mm,
I think everybody should have their own divisions to be able to fight with people their own level, their own belts, and that would make the tournament grow so much more. During our the last seminar that I had there in at Malmo, I was talking with a black belt, and he's not even that much older than me. But he told me the reason why he doesn't fight as Sam is because he doesn't want to go to a tournament and fight against purple belts.
Yeah.
At the same way that I know purple belts that don't want to go into a tournament because they don't feel like they are at the level to fight against a brown or black belt.
Yeah.
Like that there should, if the goal of the federation, if the goal of the academies in Sweden is to make jiu-jitsu bigger, they should make a tournament where everyone can fight.
Mm.
So that's my biggest feeling, my biggest opinion about them mixing belts.
Mm. Yeah, I think I know back in the days we used to have like Swedish Open. I haven't been to Nordic, but I used to go to Swedish Open all the time, and I remember like Swedish Open they had more people per division than SM, and all right, people are also coming from different countries, but still, like you said, there's probably a lot of black belts who are maybe not training full time, and they don't want to compete against the purple belt, and also a purple belt who doesn't feel that he's on the same level. So splitting it up would maybe make more people compete.
Uh,
Um,
this the amount of people registered has been a big talk. After I did this post, the one guy from the federation and got in touch with me, and we spoke a lot about it. And he brought that up. He said there is not enough people in Sweden to do a full Swedish nationals. And the first thing I told him is like I compared exactly like you the Swedish Open and the most recent Nordic Opens. I said, how come Nordic Open has 5 times more people register than SM? Like is supposed to be the biggest tournament of the year in the whole country. It doesn't make sense that it only has a third, a fourth of the amount of a local tournament. Because, like it or not, Nordic Open is considered a local tournament.
yeah,
So it doesn't make sense in my head, in no one's head. The Nordic Open has more people registered than a Swedish nationals.
yeah, um, yeah. So how do you think? How do you think this future is for Swedish Jiu-Jitsu? Will we be able to make it on the international scene in the near
Yes,
future?
yes, I believe it will because everything over time changes, and I hope for that.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the work I'm doing, I see something in the future where I believe no one else will be able to achieve, but I want to be the person to do it. I tell people close to me and my students that my biggest dream with Aura is to make a full-time Swedish training in Sweden, black belt world champion male.
Mm.
Uh, because there has been, if I'm not
Female, yeah.
mistaken, a
Yanni,
female.
Yanni, Yanni Larsson, I believe.
Yes, one female. So I really believe that maybe in 10 years I'm able to do that.
Hmm.
That's one of my main goals, to have my own student black belt world champion.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I really don't have anything else to bring up. So thank you for coming here. If you have any sponsors, you could say them right now. The name of your academy, where they are.
Rebels, Rebels is the best. Me and Rebels, we have been working together since I was a brown belt, and they've been the best sponsor that I could ever ask for. They've been together with me throughout the end of my athlete career, and now as a teacher. They're constantly helping me and guiding me with things related to my academy now. So I couldn't be happier with them. And of
Mm.
course, Auto Jiu Jitsu, my academy. If anybody that is around Stockholm or would like to come and visit, you guys are gonna be more than welcome. and I hope to be part of the change of jiu-jitsu in Sweden.
Cool. Thank you.
Tack så mycket.